you, Sue. Looking forward to talking about this. So I have a client recently that is looking to implement CI/CD in Fabric, and it's sparked a lot of conversation. But what I started out with was telling them about variable libraries, because I've been using Power BI since it was in Excel, and I have wanted this forever. This is, for those of you who do mostly Power BI, this is the same thing as development pipelines with the lightning bolt with the gear on it. They're your rules that you could create. So it is the Fabric version of that. So if you're familiar with that concept in Power BI, this is basically taking it to the next level. And Microsoft just added this April 1st, so it's still in preview. I have a friend whose company only lets them implement things that have actually been released. So in Fabric, that's kind of a big deal. So if that's you, check basically all of the upcoming Fabric conferences to see when they're going to make this GA. I will say that there are a lot of different preview items that I think they released them early and they had issues, but I have been using Fabric libraries extensively since April 1st, and I've implemented them at clients as well. And there's nothing that I have found that has broken it, and I've tried. So unlike say like Lakehouse schemas, they released that one too early. I've not found any real issues with using variable libraries. So while it is in preview, I do recommend using it in a production environment. I have. So with that, basically, Sue gave me a really nice intro. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that I do have, I am a Microsoft certified trainer in addition to being an MVP, and I've got some classes on LinkedIn on Fabric, and at the end, I will give you a link to a free class that you can take on Fabric as well. I put my contact information up there if you do have any questions. Please, give me a follow, and then I'll be happy to answer your questions. I'm on LinkedIn quite a bit, as well as Twitter, and my email's there as well. All right, so let's talk about development pipelines. So development pipelines, not new. They did not work for Fabric initially because a lot of things were not included. It was originally created so that you could migrate from dev and test and production workspaces in Fabric. And that's pretty much what they're designed to do inside of Fabric as well. So obviously, if you have code and you want to move it from dev to test to prod in a workspace, there's really no other way of doing it other than development pipelines, because there's things like, for example, notebooks in Power BI that you can't move any other way. It's not possible to do that. So now the way the development pipelines work is that they're basically designed to do just that. Although a lot of people say, well, there is CI/CD in Fabric. Can I do that in Git? No, you can't. And the reason why is that Git doesn't have everything in it. And so there's more things in variable libraries that exist in Git. So you are going to want to migrate using development pipelines. It's the best way of doing it. Now, oh, by the way, couple of rules that you need to keep in mind when you do that. One of them is a workspace can only be in one pipeline. Funny story about that. I was at a client and I was showing them, hey, this is how you use development pipelines. And I looked and I'm like, the workspace for development's not in the drop-down list. What the heck is wrong? And I couldn't do the demo because it wasn't there. So what happened was somebody else was playing around creating development pipelines, and they added our development workspace to another pipeline. That takes it off the list. So a pipeline can only be in one workspace. Our workspace, I said that backwards. Workspace can only be in one pipeline. What that means, if someone has added it to another pipeline, then you can't, and you need to get access to that pipeline. So if you're setting this up, you're like, how come something's missing? Somebody else has got a development pipeline. You don't have access to it. So that's what you might see. And yeah, I freaked out when I saw that. And there are a few things that are not included in the migration. Generally speaking, they are machine learning models. And coincidentally enough, something that I'm not happy about, but I'm happy to show you the workaround, and that's data lake connections. So I know that this is a Power BI user group as well, so I hope that everybody is taking advantage of using Data Lake, because that is the replacement for direct query. Great tool, but you're going to run into some problems with Data Lake that I'm going to show you how to fix inside of development pipelines, because they're not automatically changed, which they should be. I have talked to the product team about my opinion about that, but I will show you how you could make that work today. So good thing. All right, so let's get into this. So what's the difference between like Git integration and development pipelines? They're different. Basically, this is not going to be where you check things in. As a matter of fact, if you have either DevOps or GitHub repo associated with the workspace, and you have stuff that's uncommitted, it will let you migrate it. Now, ideally, you shouldn't, but it's not going to stop you because it doesn't integrate with those with the Git or DevOps in any way. It predates it by a number of years. And it is designed to move from one workspace to the other. Now, you'll notice by looking at this picture here, there is a deploy button. There's no back button, which means that if you have a scenario where let's say that you have something developed and you migrate it to test, and test says that is awful, get rid of it, I want to go back to the previous version, that's what you need to use your Git repo for, because you can't go back. There's no back button. You just move forward. Notice here these little lightning bolts with a gear. These were the rules that you could use to implement in Power BI. Variable libraries replace that inside of Fabric. So there are two different ways to look at the development pipeline, a new way and an old way. You'll note if you're looking at it, you're like, my screen doesn't look anything like that. Yeah, that's because when the option said, do you want to go to the new version? I said no, because I like this one better. So there you go. So that's why you may say, mine doesn't look anything like that. And that's why. You'll notice that you can see the difference. Now I can scroll to the left and to the right, and I will see the list of each item, and we'll look at that in the demo. But you'll also notice here that I have an orange X with some arrows around it. And this is showing me that I have differences between development and test. I'll click on this particular arrow. I can see what those differences are. So that is how you work the development pipelines. So why do variable libraries matter, and how does all this work with development pipelines? Well, like I said, they're still in preview because they were released at FabCon in Vegas on the 1st of April, so April Fool. But they allow you to manage parameters throughout your components. So if we go back to March 31st, before variable libraries were a thing, and you took a pipeline and you migrated that pipeline in a development library from dev to test. When you went to test, it's still pointing to dev. And if you're like, well, how do I make that happen automatically? Prior to development pipelines, the answer is you cannot. Now, of course, why would you want to migrate your code from dev to test and not have test point to test? Well, of course you do, which is what development pipelines will help you do. So it helps you manage parameters throughout your components. And this, of course, is going to improve your ability to do CI/CD, because you can just move it and not have to worry about how it's set up. And allows for better migration of workspaces. If you don't use variable libraries, you have to do a lot of manual intervention. Almost all of the manual intervention is now gone. So you can just click on that deploy button. Ta-da, your stuff is from dev to test once you've set up your variable libraries. So you want to make sure that you do that. So I just like it working. It's not cool. I'm getting a not responding on my slide here. So let me see if I can't get that to wake up. Good. Yep. So I'm going to close PowerPoint and restart it.
No worries.
Yeah. Weird.
Sometimes it just does it, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Henry put VL is not needed to make the source change automatic.
Variable libraries are not needed to make the source change automatic in my opinion. Well, so if you don't, I'll show you what the problem is. So if I have a pipeline and I move my pipeline from dev to test, guess where it's pointing? Dev. So even though I'm in my test workspace, if I don't use a variable library, then I have to manually go into my pipeline and change my connections. So in my mind, that's really kind of a drag, because the more manual intervention that you have to do, the better chance you have of problems occurring as a result. So,
Okay.
I mean, do not have to do it? Yeah, but you're going to have to go in and fix it. Because you're not going to want your dev stuff you're not going to want in test your workspace to be dev. And that's what automatically happens. So variable libraries will allow you to configure what that should be. For example, if I have a pipeline, we're going back to pipelines because they're the most obvious, and I move that pipeline from dev to test, I want it to point to test. I have to change the workspace ID associated with that pipeline so that it takes the source from the lake house with the name in dev versus the name in test. Now, what is kind of annoying is while in code, if you're using say a Spark notebook, you're good. You don't have to reference the GWTs, but in pipelines you do. So it's not the same. So it really improves the pipeline. And there are some things in notebooks that you may want to change as well. And that what you're going to do. And this will fully integrate with either GitHub or DevOps as well, because it is a component.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, it's possible to go without it, but there are reasons you don't want to, you can say. So, and I will show you how that switches. And
brilliant. It's fascinating. Anything that helps is all good.
Yeah. Oh, goodness gracious. You're not going to believe this, but this just died again. I'm going to have to do. It is really being annoying today. All right. I don't like doing this at all, but also don't want this to die. So, filling this again. Okay. So, you'd think that I'd have problems with my demos. So I fixed that. Yeah, I know. And now I fixed my demo problem. I've used the Buck Woody school, and now I can't get PowerPoint to work. I mean, geez, if it's on one thing, it's another. Guarantee you my demos will work because I recorded them. So hold up. I'll get this thing going. So annoying.
Oh, don't worry. We're,
it's just like, I can't believe that I have PowerPoint problems. All right. So I hate it when people do this, and I'm doing what I hate because I just don't want this to die. So excuse me for the bad.
So Chewy's just said Teams eats as much memory as he eats tacos for lunch. I've seen his WhatsApp group. Ginger, he eats a lot of tacos. And Sheila, I noticed Sheila, you weren't. And
now I want tacos. It is Taco Tuesday.
Taco Tuesday.
Yeah. So this is what variable libraries look like. So you'll notice what I've got here is I've got a default value set and I have a test value set. You'll notice these numbers aren't the same. This is my dev workspace. This is my test workspace. Yes, I would have one for production. Just trying to make it small so that you could read. So these are the different versions that I'm looking at here. So if I set these, and I went over the top and added source schema, etc. But I need to change these references from my source lakehouse and my destination lakehouse to make that work. So the steps of doing this is I'm going to be creating my variable libraries. I'm going to use the parameters that I create inside of my objects in Fabric, and then I'm going to set the active variable in migrating code. So let's take a look at how to do that. And like I said, I wanted to make sure that my demos worked great. So I'm using the Buck Woody School and I recorded them. So let's take a look at what you have to have from the admin section first off to make this work. So I'm going to go into the admin portal and I have to make sure, since this is a preview feature, that it is turned on. So make sure in your admin portal that you have the option for users can create variable libraries. If you don't see that, probably because your admin doesn't have this enabled or maybe doesn't have it enabled for you. So naturally, we need to have that first. So I'm going to go ahead and configure code in my Fabric Workday to make this work. And spoiler alert, this means you're going to be using parameters inside of your pipelines if you haven't created that already. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new variable pipeline. It's all the way down at the bottom. If I'd been smarter when I did this, I would have said filter by type and just typed variable libraries, but I wasn't that smart. So I scrolled all the way down so I could see everything that I have in here to do that. So it was the last one when I did this. So all the way at the bottom, you'll see variable libraries and show you that it is in preview. You can call it whatever you like. I'm going to call it var libraries because I'm unique like that with my names. Going to go ahead and create it. This uses the simple way of creating stuff. Now I'm going to create a new variable. And these variables I'm going to reference. So I'm going to create one called workspace. And this is going to need to be a GUID. So I'm going to make sure that this says string. Doesn't take the name, it takes GUIDs inside of pipelines. So I'm going to need to get the value set for that and then go ahead and paste that in there. So then I'm going to create another variable. And this variable I'm going to call, I'm going to move my hands in the right place. I'm going to call this source lakehouse. I don't know why, to be honest. I mean, technically, you're right. I could have used GUID. I just look at it as a string. GUID would probably be smarter, and I should have done that. But I didn't.
I wonder what the difference is between the data type of the different ones. Yeah, I was thinking that, Sheila.
Yeah,
Gina.
I wonder if GUID would be some kind of validation. Maybe it would catch it if I pasted it wrong.
Yeah.
So I'll show you an easy way to find the both workspace and source and destination lakehouse so you don't have to clip it from on top of your of Fabric too. There's other ways of doing that. Now I didn't have to add schema. I just basically went hog wild when I went into all of the different elements that I possibly could. And so I just put everything in there. I'm going to do this again, though, and use GUID. To be honest, I didn't notice.
Well, I think that's a problem. Well, not problem. It's part of the process. Is everything is changing so frequently that it may not even have been there, did you, when you recorded it?
Well, it wasn't there when I first used this before it was released. And so it may not have been there. And then I just never looked at it after. That's a very good point.
Yeah. Sheila's saying the same.
Yeah. But I'm going to do this again and test it out. So to find it. Now, this is not anything that I can't edit later. You'll notice it says that this default set is active. I can go in later on, do whatever. If I fat fingered this, if I want to add more, I'm totally able to do this. Now this is on a workspace thing. It gives you this thing saying, hey, if you change these, bad things are going to happen to you. Yeah. So keep that in mind, but you can go ahead and change them whenever you want to. Now I want to make these work. So it's nice having libraries. So what do I want to do? Well, I'm just going to, this is just a simple example. I'm going to take data from my DIM employee table here. And if I go to this Livy endpoint, this is where it's a really easy space to get both the workspace GUID as well as the lakehouse GUID. Now, oh, by the way, This means the lakehouse GUID has to exist, right? So if you're pushing things from dev to test, it has to exist in test before you can set it. So you're going to need to move it once to get the key before you'll be able to set the variable library there. And in this instance, I am just moving this to another lakehouse. If it was up to me, I would never use a GUID. I use a GUID not because I like GUIDs, because I don't have a choice. The reason I don't have a choice is because that's how pipelines work. So there you go. So moving from one lakehouse to another one. So let's go ahead and create my data pipeline, and I will show you why I need to use a GUID. So, and as far as string versus the GUID variable, honestly, I just don't know.
You can see why Ginger and I got on so well when we met. It was just plain blunt chatting.
Yeah, don't know.
Wow.
But so here's the deal. In parameters, so I clicked on a blank section. I have this new section called parameter library variables. And this is setting my library variables to variables in my pipeline. So I'm going to put PL after it because I can't reference variable libraries, variable parameters inside of my pipeline. They have to be parameters created for pipelines. So I'm creating parameters for pipelines and setting them to variable library elements. So that's why I'm doing it this way, because it's using the existing elements here. So everything in my drop-down box is what's available to me. So if I need to make sure that I add everything that I need to use from a parameter inside of my pipeline to my variable library elements here. So if I have it defined inside of my variable library, but I don't have a corresponding parameter, my pipeline, it's not going to help me, because these are what I'm referencing, because it didn't rewrite all of the parameters for pipelines. They just said, hey, point your existing ones to here.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, that kind of does make some sense.
Pipelines are great, aren't they? But they are very specific, and understandably so.
Yeah, and also a lot of people are not necessarily using parameters. I have a client and they didn't have parameters in any of their pipelines. And I'm like, step one, start putting parameters in your pipelines.
Yeah. Like when I first started using pipelines, I came into trouble because I had a Python library in an environment, and I couldn't use that in the pipeline to start with.
Yeah. You can use this to pass parameters to your pipeline to notebooks as well. I don't have that because that's much easier to do, but if you have separate ones, you can definitely do that. The other thing that's nice, and oh, by the way, this is something that didn't work initially, but works later on. Initially, it would not automatically, with development pipelines, reset the default parameters, but it does now.
Okay.
So default parameters will point to the workspace that you are in. And it didn't do that initially, it does now. So, all right, I have a lake house. If I selected a lake house, I have to tell it the workspace ID. This is where I have to have a GUID because it doesn't take a name. So I have added my pipeline in my workspace ID because I have to have one. Now you have to select dynamic content to get this. So in my variable libraries, I'm just going to select the different items here.
Oh, nice.
And you don't have to type all this. You just basically remember that magical ellipse menu. So you click the three dots so that you can have it write it for you. So I've got my connection parameter here. Again, that's dynamic content because everything is going to be dynamic content for my libraries. So my destination is going to be my destination lakehouse, and I screwed up and didn't add that. So I'm going to go back to my parameters and add my destination lakehouse because I didn't add it. And so I need to go back and fix that.
This is brilliant because it's a type of thing that you forget. So you know, rather than having this beautifully curated A to E, you know, showing that you can go back and forth as you're like, oh, I need this, I need that, is really helpful.
Yeah. So now that I can get that, then I can go ahead and add my dynamic content and go to my ellipse menu and get variable libraries. If I had this on normal resolution, I wouldn't have to do that, but you know, I want to be able to see stuff. Yeah. So I just select my new one there and add it. And then it gives me the workspace ID. Don't want the ID. I want that to be in a parameter so that it'll change. So then I can, I did this because I didn't select the dynamic content. So I need to make sure that I do that by clicking that button that says enter manually. Then I get the dynamic content. So if you're like, why don't I get that? That's why. Because this is all dynamic content. And that box wasn't there until you select. I know, sneaky, right? Unless you say enter manually. So remember your checkboxes. If you don't find it, you can do that. So everything's now a parameter. So I've got all these different parameters. I'm going to go ahead and save this. And then I'm going to go ahead and run this. Again, this is a very simple pipeline. All I'm doing is basically taking a table from one database and moving it to another slightly modified device, you know, from basically from my raw or my bronze into silver. And so just running it, because of course I want to make sure it works before that I go on and do this. And what's nice about doing this in a demo is I was able to speed this up so you don't have to wait so long for doing this. And go ahead and see that this is going to work successfully. So I successfully ran my elements. So now I have a new table. If I look in my destination schema and I hit refresh, because it's not there yet, then of course, then I can see my new table. So if you're freaking out, you're like, it's not there, refresh.
Yeah, refresh. I've been doing that lots today.
Yeah. So this is my new table that exists. All right. So now I've got a working pipeline. And notice that I do have source control here. I'm going to go ahead and do the right thing and take the items that I have not yet committed, and I'm going to go ahead and add them to source control. Here I have used DevOps. I found out recently that Microsoft is recommending that you use Git, which is interesting. They're saying that DevOps is feature complete, and they are not planning on adding more items to DevOps, but they are planning on increasing Git, but Git's not at parity yet, which I thought was fast. All right, I'm going to create a new pipeline. And I have a new pipeline for Fabric Workday. And I've created it already. And notice if I click on that, you can see that if I compare the elements that I just added are there. By the way, you notice at the top it says new deployment pipelines. This is not new yet. So that's because I like this particular view of it. If yours doesn't look like it, that's why. It's because I have that turned off. I think it works better. Now, I don't have any values set up for test. So I have to do that. And I want to do that before I migrate it because I want to migrate it with the values.
Yeah.
So I'm creating another value set. And it copied everything over. But that's not going to work because I need to get my workspace ID for test. And I need to get my source and destination lakehouse values for test. Yes. Because if otherwise, everything that I move it is still going to point to dev. Yeah. Which you don't want. So notice that test is not going to be active in dev. Go figure. But I do want to make sure that I update it with the appropriate values and then check it in. Because I want to check everything in dev just as good practicing. So I need to go and get my values. I'm going to do that by going to the gear here, going to my Livy endpoint. And here I can just copy the workspace ID and the lakehouse ID every time when I just click it. And I find this easier than clicking it from the URL. if you feel like clicking it from the URL, it's the same thing. It's just another place to look that you might not have thought to look. So I also need to get it from here as well, you know, copying it from my destination. And I'm getting it from my Livy endpoint. Yeah, Yuri agrees with me. He likes the old version too. Good on you, Yuri. I like the new one. I just think it's like confuses me.
Same here, like, Ginger. I also enjoyed the old one.
Yeah. I like the fact that there's a button. Now, someday that button's going to go away. I'm going to be mad, but not today. So I can go back into my variable library, and all I need to do now is I need to change the GUIDs for my workspace because it has to point to test, and for my source and destination lakehouse because pipelines use GUIDs, not names. Notebooks use names. So if the need is only to manage or report a semantic model, not other Fabric items in dev, test, and prod, then VL is not needed. Right, because you can still use that lightning bolt with the gear on it to create deployment rules. So deployment rules were created for Power BI, but you couldn't do that with Fabric. So with Power BI, yeah, continue using that that lightning bolt with a gear if you need to change values from dev to test. Now, when I did this, what's going to be different now is the fact that I didn't add any of my stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and deploy that. And then it's going to go from dev to test. So it's going to deploy my lakehouse. Now, by the way, it's not deploying my data. Your data doesn't move. Your tables don't move. Your lakehouse moved. Well, you need to use the lightning bolt if there's something that you have rules for. So if there is a scenario.
So what did you say? So your data doesn't move, your tables don't move, but your lakehouse. Your lakehouse moves.
Oh, lakehouse. No, it doesn't move tables. It moves the lakehouse. You're on your own for the tables, the data.
Oh,
that doesn't get moved.
Yeah.
I'm just moving the lakehouse, not the tables.
Okay, cool.
Now it's here I'm setting
active. So it doesn't move the schema or the tables.
Nope.
Is that right? So it just creates a sort of name, basically, then.
Yep.
Oh.
You're on your own for anything else.
Right.
That is separate from the deployment pipeline.
Okay.
And you'll notice that when we look into it, because if we look here in test, and look at my values, then it's totally different. Now, inside of my pipeline, what do I have to do? Nothing. I'm good. Because it's going to use my test set of variables.
So it knows that you've moved from dev to test, so it therefore automatically uses your test variables.
Yep. Don't have to do a damn thing.
Yeah. Bertalan says he thinks sometimes.
Yeah, you'll notice though that the table that I created here earlier, when I ran it, isn't there. I don't have any tables in div because I didn't move them. So I'm on my own for doing that. But as far as everything else, I'm done. So, and sometimes the deployment pipeline forgets to copy a schema. It doesn't copy the schema. Will not copy the schema for you. Not always. I always script it. Because don't count on it for doing anything other than the object. So keep that in mind, and you need to create scripts to migrate as well. But again, this isn't going to do that for you. You're going to have to write something to do that. So there you go. So it succeeded. And so now we can take a look in test. And we can take a look at this. Yeah.
Quick question then. So on the script set, do you include the script set in the pipeline then as well? Have a notebook that then, or has the scripts to then create
That's exactly
everything?
what I do. I do it with a notebook, and then I run the notebook.
Okay. All right then. So cool.
And you can run the notebook in the pipeline in a pipeline.
Right,
as well.
right. You can basically validate. You can basically have a notebook that updates your schema, and then you can basically, if exists, run else no. but don't move the data.
It makes sense.
Yeah. But so here's my table that didn't exist before because I just created it by running it. So you can see that everything that I gave, so if I did not have a variable parameter, I would have to have gone and fixed the ID, gone and fixed the source at lakehouse, gone and fixed the destination lakehouse. Because those IDs, obviously, they're not the same in dev and test. Now, one thing that's also nice is that when I migrated, you notice when I migrated, dev was active. And then in test, I set it to make test active. They don't overwrite that. So if you migrate it again, you're like, oh crap, do I need to change for which one is active? No, that doesn't get changed. Even if you modify the variable library, what is active stays active until you go in and change it.
Okay, so you have to manually do that.
Right, but you only do it once.
Yeah.
Once you've done it, it's not like every time you migrate it, you need to do it. Once is good. So if you've done it once, then that's all you need to do. So, all right. So here's the thing. What about Direct Lake? So I use Direct Lake, love Direct Lake, allows you to get updates whenever something has been moved. But here's the thing. If you migrate your semantic model dev to test, it doesn't move the connection. And that's a problem. You can't do it in variable libraries. Can't do it inside of the lightning bolt with a gear either. So it's like, oh, well, what do I do if I am using Direct Lake and I need to migrate from dev to test? How do I change those those words pointing to? Tyndall. So if you haven't ever used Tyndall, time to start. You need to start using Tyndall for things. So basically, the only way this works today. Now, I did not like the answer that I got from Microsoft when I said, well, how am I supposed to do this then? This is the way that you can make this work. And what it means is you're going to have to edit the semantic model in desktop. You can't do it online. It doesn't work. And then you basically script the model to Tyndall, and you change the workspace ID and the lakehouse ID. And you need to do that in your semantic model. If you move that semantic model from dev to test, because it won't change it. It is not pointing to it. I was working with a client. They're like, well, we always use the API. That also works. I'm not going to say don't use the API. I'm just going to show you this way because it's easier. So that will be the other way of doing it. Now, so in this scenario, I have a semantic model, and my semantic model is in development. And it is, of course, pointing to my lakehouse. It's also in development. So taking a look at this here online, and we see that I've got, some tables and stuff like that in there. Just a straight up semantic model, and this is pointing to dev. Now, if I want to change this, if I go and open it inside of desktop like that, it won't work because I don't have the Tyndall view. I only have the Tyndall view if I open up a desktop and then connect. Now, of course, there's a couple things you need to do in desktop to make this work as well. So under options, you're going to need to go and make sure that you've got a couple things set. So in preview features, you're going to need to make sure, of course, that you can store semantic, make sure you've got the PBIP save option on, and you'll want to store semantic models using Tyndall. And you want to make sure that you have live edit of Power BI semantic models in Lake mode turned on as well. You need these two things turned on. So I'm in a blank, untitled Power BI desktop, and I'm going to open up my semantic model inside of dev. Now, notice on Connect, you've got this little drop-down box here. in that I can go ahead and edit it. When I edit it, what I can do is I can then change where it's pointing to. So I'm going to go into the Tyndall view here because I'm editing my semantic model. And I want to go to Tyndall. And then inside of the semantic model, I'm going to say script tab. And when I say script tab, I've got the whole thing scripted out into Tyndall. Go all the way to the end because that's where I happen to know the connections live. And here, if we see here, this is where the data lake connection is set up with a GUID. So I'm scrolling to that part in my semantic model where it's showing me where my direct lake models are and changing the workspace and the ID of the lake house. And this is how you do that for direct lake.
Gosh.
So if you have direct lake and you move that semantic model, it doesn't change the connection. And this will change it for you. Or you can write an API, but this is easier. You will have to do this every time you migrate a direct lake used semantic model from dev to test. And yeah, you could use it and do it in tabular editor too if you wanted to. So tabular editor, the way that I showed you, or Fabric API, but you do have to change it because when you migrate from dev test to prod, it's not going to point to the new workspace. So yeah, and I expressed my hope when I talked to the product team that they will add that to variable libraries soon. Soon as not today, this works. Yeah, it looks like a lot of work, but you can do it. And you do have to do this anyway. If you're migrating from dev to test and you got a semantic model, you need to change the connections. So change the connections. Don't forget, because it'll point to the wrong one. Is a benefit of semantic linked labs is you can use a friendly name of the workspace versus the GUID. I don't know how you do that with direct lake though. Again, this is direct lake only. If you're not using direct lake, you don't have to care. So, but it will not migrate that connection for you. You can't set it anywhere else. So, there you go. So keep that in mind if you're doing direct lake, because that's kind of a really important concept. And I'm like, I was shocked. I'm like, what do you mean it doesn't work? I'm like, what crap, it doesn't work. And then I didn't figure out that stupid, the key thing here that you need to make sure that you remember that you do this is I did not realize, where is this? There's that drop down box when you do this. So I didn't think about the fact that when you do this, I'll go back, scroll, find it, but that there is that little drop down box when you say connect. Yeah, right there.
Connect and edit. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a drop down box. So make sure you say connect and edit. It's the only way it works.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind when you're doing this. So that does really matter. Any questions about that? So, all right, what about Key Vault? You can use Key Vault in code if you don't want to make the keys visible. It's not incorporated as part of variable libraries, but you can use them inside of notebooks. And if you want to use Key Vault inside of your notebooks, I have this set up and have it working for a customer. The thing that you have to remember is that you need to create a system user-ish to be able to access your Key Vault inside of your notebook. And your system user is an app. So you are going to need to create an app registration to have a client ID, and that's going to allow you to access the Key Vault using that system, because it's using the app ID information, and that's how you can access Key Vault inside of a notebook. Because you can't use your ID when you're doing this. So that's why you have to create an app registration for it, which was really annoying when I was doing it for a client because I didn't have rights to do that and it would pay. But you have to have that if you're using that in code. All right, let me go ahead and I'll show you how I did that inside of code to make that work. And this is an actual live demo. All right.
So many things, aren't there, to consider?
Yeah. And also what's fun about this is that I'm glad they asked me to do that, because then you get the idea of how different things work. So in order to make I have to go into Azure here.
I've been looking forward to seeing a notebook with Key Vault as well. So this is very useful.
Yeah. So inside of Azure, what I had to do initially is I have to create this app ID. And the app ID is just so that I can use it to call the Key Vault. So let's take a look at my components here inside of Azure to make that happen. So obviously I have a Key Vault. Go figure. And my Key Vault contains a password for a zip file. And this is what I called it. So nothing that exciting. When I created this Key Vault, it's got objects, it's got my keys, and I have two passwords. I have a zip password and I have a PGP password. And we can take a look at, and I have actually a whole bunch of other passwords here, but my zip password here, if we look at it, we can go in and see that my password is something like 123 or whatever. But the idea is I don't have to reference what this password is in code. And for my client, these are used because they get sent third-party zip files from financial clients, and they change the password every 6 months. So I always want to make sure that I have the password. So putting it into a zip library, somebody just goes in when it changes, and then I can go ahead and do that. Now, so what do I do with this Key Vault? Well, I have to create an Entra ID app. So inside of Entra ID, I create an app registration. And creating an app registration inside of Entra ID is like creating a system account. And the one that I have created is called Unzip Key Vault. And when I created this, it gives you a client ID that's a secret that you can only look at once. Mm-hmm. And then that is what I'm going to use. And this is going to give me access. So this isn't the right secret. It only gives you at the very beginning. So let's take a look at the code that I use to execute to make this work. So inside of my file process code, I have a Key Vault. I'm basically got a zip file that all I am doing is unzipping the file. So what I've done here, and these are the things that you need to put inside of this to make this work. By the way, I'm happy to report that my Fabric trial is now 2 years and 6 months old.
Mine stopped for a bit, but I've got it back again.
Oh, you lucky. Mine didn't start again.
Yeah. I can't remember what I did to make it start again.
So the important things to have in here are I have to have the Azure Tenant ID. That's pretty obvious. The client ID and the client secret. And this is the Entra ID from the app ID, and this is a secret that I got from that as well. So this is going to allow me to get the secret zip password from the Key Vault. And I can see what my secret is as well, because I can choose to show what it is. So it tells me that I'm retrieving my secret, but I have to have this set up. Otherwise I can't call it. So thing to keep in mind. So I'm telling it that I want my Key Vault name, my secret name, retrieving that, and then I can just unzip it with that password. And what I'm doing is I've got a zip file that I then, of course, I move those into unzip. So the key points in this is basically making sure that you have that app ID created already. And I do have, a couple of libraries that I need to install as well. Key Vault certificates, go figure. Key Vault secrets, keys, and Azure Identity and Azure Core. So I installed these different ones in here. For my client, I did this in the workspace, but I wanted to show you all the ones that I have to do here. Also, PYJWT and Key Vault certificates. So, and then I'm accessing all of those, and I'm using something called Key Zipper. So it's basically this credential is how I'm running it with the app ID. Because it's saying default credential, that's looking for the app ID that I provided it for the client ID of that, and that's how it's running it. So then it is getting the Key Vault value, this secret, because I'm using the default credentials from the app ID. And I'm setting that here. So
it makes it,
yeah.
I have to do something similar for OpenAI. And when you have it laid out like this, it looks so straightforward, but I know it took me forever to work out which bit goes where.
I'm like, I have to do a what? Yeah. Actually, the reason that I created this particular demo is because I had to request what I needed to do exactly from my client. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm not really sure, because I didn't have rights to do anything in Azure. Yeah. And so I went through this so that I could tell them exactly what I needed to do, because I didn't want to go back and say, oh, I need to open up another ticket because I need to do this other thing.
Yeah. And so
you do have to create that app ID.
So then on there, when you every so often you then have to update your client secret when the certificate expires, and
if it expires
in your app ID.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And you only get to see it the once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't open it again.
No.
Nope.
And I did something where I lost it. I screwed it up somehow, and you create a new one.
Me too.
Yeah. So if you lose it, you create a new one.
Yeah.
That's the solution.
And I was thinking, well, how can where am I supposed to put it for it to be safe? It's supposed to be safe in this vault. And I was like, oh. Yeah. You're usually trialing it out late at night or something, aren't you? When you get tired, when you're testing it yourself.
No, they're not kidding. You get so as soon as you see it, copy it, and you paste it.
Yeah.
So that's how you can that's how you do Key Vault inside of a notebook. And again, the thing that's important to remember is, yes, you have to create an app, and that's in Entra ID, which seems like the dumbest thing that you have to do, but that's how it works. So there you go.
Yeah.
All right. So that's notebooks using Key Vault. So in summary, variable libraries are great. Don't do everything. If you're doing direct lake, you're going to need to edit those connections in Tyndall. And if you want to use Key Vault inside of a notebook, great. But there are going to be some Azure things that you need to set up as well. So keep that in mind. If somebody's asking you to do that, make sure that you create the app ID. Walk your infrastructure team through creating the app, because it's something so infrequently. Yeah, I know, but I had to do it first because I didn't know how to do it. So I wanted to make sure that I knew how to do it before I told somebody how to do it. And then I provided them detailed instructions because I had to create a ticket and they require it.
Yeah.
So that's, following the rules. But and do remember that if you do want to use Key Vault inside of a notebook. All right. And with that, one thing that I wanted to let you know is that last QR code is for a LinkedIn Learning class that I have on Fabric that you can take it for free. It's time boxed. I can't extend the time, but I can give you the class for free. So, and I highly recommend that if your work is paying for it, check out other classes that I happen to have inside of LinkedIn Learning. If nobody's paying for it, hey, do the free one, but do it quickly, because it doesn't last for forever. So give you a chance to take a picture of that QR code so that you can go ahead and do that. So, and I also found this thing called Code Monkey, which allows me to write all the little QR codes and put icons in the middle. So I felt compelled to do that.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. QR Monkey.
QR Monkey.
And then you can make pretty ones.
That's nice.
Yeah, any color you want, all the good stuff. Yeah, and you give it like the hex values, so literally exact color you want.
Same color.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. Fabric data flows and data storage, what you should know.
Yep.
That was fascinating. I can't believe that hour's gone. Where has it gone?
Yeah.
But I've not used the environments and the libraries, but that came across really clearly. You can see why you're NCT.
I highly recommend doing it. The only thing is that your organization does have to allow you to do preview features and watch it with Direct Lake.
Yeah. Do you know when they're going to make it GA?
I don't know, but I do know that I was in another meeting with Microsoft people and they were talking about doing this thing. And I said, instead of doing the thing, how about in Power BI, you make everything that's preview GA first?
Yeah.
And they laughed and said, this is something that we've been getting a lot of feedback on. And we do plan on making more things that are preview GA soon. So they said to look for it later in the year-ish. So I don't know. I always, even if you don't attend Vienna, go and look and see what all the announcement they make, but maybe this has gotten GA then.
Yeah.
I will say I don't know of any issues with it, other than the fact there are things it doesn't do that I want, like click.
So. Yeah, and I suspect you told them very clearly.
Yeah, Rory and I had a bit of a conversation about it.
Yeah.
So
that was perfect. Thank you. You're getting a lot of love in the chat.
Yay!
So thank
you so much for inviting me to speak to
Ginger.
user group.
Oh, you're very
brilliant.
welcome.
God.
It's a lovely user group. It's always full of interested people who talk and ask. So whilst it's virtual, both Anthony and I believe that it should be very much everybody else. It's a team that turn up each week and cameras are on and questions are asked. So we always like to try and make it as interactive as possible.
Yes, and I'll be rebooting my machine after this to see if I can get PowerPoint to work consistently. So I never present like this because I find it annoying, but this did not blow up. So there you go.
Yeah.
Ginger, question is on the
Sure.
Key Vault notebook. Would you be willing to share a sort of that notebook for us
It's a dummy notebook anyway. So
sorry?
Yeah, it's a
just with the codes and stuff stripped out, but just the sort of layout.
Right. No, I'll just I'll
we've got
make the keys messed up.
Yeah, Sue's got a GitHub that we can then put in there, and then it's for
I'll
collecting
give you a
resources
copy of
and
that.
stuff. Okay, cool. Thanks very much.
I
You're very
think
welcome,
mine
yeah.
might be in my GitHub as well, Anthony, for the OpenAI.
Oh, is it?
I've got
Okay,
the Key
cool.
Vault secret
Okay.
in there as well.
Okay.
Yeah, the issue is that the hard part is the stuff that's not in the notebook, which you have to set up on Azure.
Yeah.
So,
That's
and
fine.
I
There are
can't
some
stress
good-
that enough.
Yeah. I think it's in Microsoft Learn or something. There are some.
Yeah,
little-
it's not like you can't find it, but I
Okay,
mentioned
no,
that because that's the hardest part about it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Which bit do I click? And like you say, you don't do it very often. So you want to make sure you've got it right before you can do it yourself. Oh, perfect. So next week I'm in Vienna. Woohoo. And then after Vienna, who have we got the week after? Can't remember. Let's just double check. We've got translytical task flows with Jake.
I thought it was. I thought it was coming soon.
I want to see that.
Yeah, Jake's really good. He's showing us how to play Sudoku using translytical task flows. Bye, Adrian. Have a good evening. And Bertalan says thank you for the Key Vault stuff as well. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I will send you that IPVY file.
And I'll pop it in the
Thanks very
GitHub.
much.